Good morning. Adele Anderson from fulfillyourdestiny.ca and from Destiny Getaways on the Sunshine Coast. Coming to you live on Facebook this morning, and I want to talk about ego mind, body mind, and soul mind, and how keeping these in balance actually fulfill our lives and make us happier individuals, and we follow our purpose. So I'm just going to step away from the camera so you can look at the beautiful view. We're on Malaspina Strait, which is part of the Pacific Ocean, just out of Vancouver, BC. And we offer retreats at the Sunshine Coast and would love to see you here in person. But let me just step away from the camera and talk about today's topic, which is a little bit of a continuum from yesterday's topic, where we talked about the first 3 phases of psychological evolution and why our teens pull away and we start to feel that they're not following and conforming to the family. So this is just a little bit more about that, and I'll be blogging all week about psychological evolution. So check in with me every day. Sorry I'm running a few minutes late. It took me longer to write my script this morning. So internally, we have, within our bodies, we have our ego and our body that need to remain in balance. And then externally is how we balance our soul purpose or our soul mind. So what does that mean? Well, it normally happens in the first half of our lives as we figure out that our body and our ego are either imbalanced and we become mastered at these skills, or we feel stress. So how do we do that? Well, we talked yesterday about the first 3 phases of psychological evolution. Survival is the first one, when we're a newborn and require someone else to take care of our needs. Then we move into the early 2s when we start to build relationships. And then as we move into our teenage years, we start to develop our self-esteem. And as we master these things, we become stress-free, but we also become more comfortable in our lives. So internally, we require other things for our physical existence to be in balance. We need to eat the right foods to keep our body nourished and healthy. We need to exercise ourselves so that we can help defend ourselves against disease. And then we need to live in a healthy environment, a home that has heat and clean water, and limit the toxins that go into our body. So basically, we satisfy our basic human needs for safety, survival, love, belonging, and relationships. All of these directly relating to our psychological evolution. When we get it wrong, science says we set ourselves up for a variety of illnesses because we live in constant stress, and we recognize that stress is a leading indicator for heart disease, which kills more men and women on the planet than any other cause. But what else I found interesting, which I like to use, is that when we engage stress in our bodies, we actually shut our immune system down for 6 to 8 hours every time it's engaged. So this is significant when we think about the illness that we're facing in North America. If you consider that stress actually has that ability to impact our immune system by shutting it down when we're in this type of condition, it's significant. So when we master the first 3 phases of our psychological evolution, we have the ability to limit the stress that we feel within our body. And then that allows us to explore our world more deeply, and the things that interest us the most, which moves us into soul purpose. And soul balance begins, or being unbalanced, we feel it in our world by feeling a state of dissatisfaction. We begin to wonder what we're doing it for, who we're doing it for, and what we really are here for. So we start to question ourselves, what am I doing? Why am I in this rat race? And the whole purpose with the soul mind is that it requires us to be adaptable. So in order to be adaptable, we must continually learn, we must be open and cooperating with others, and we must have the ability to handle the difficult things that come up in life. And it also requires us to bond with others, so to make a community. It recognizes that we are naturally drawn to the things that we're interested to. We are actually hardwired for happiness. And so when we go into work or a job or have things in our life that doesn't trigger that sense of happiness within us, then we feel dissatisfied. So how many people can relate to that? So if work fulfills you, then it fulfills your soul purpose. So there's a big connection with work because we spend so much of our lives working. So in order to satisfy soul purpose, work should always include community, networking with other people that share the same bonds that you do. So common goals, core values, and a spiritual likeness. If a job only fulfills one part of this, as in one part of our first 3 phases of psychological evolution, our safety and security, for example, if we need the money, we need the stability financially, then our survival mode is satisfied. If it fulfills our sense of relationship, so building community and bonding with others and having like-minded spiritual connections, then it satisfies the second level of psychological or of body evolution. And then self-esteem, if we actually feel like we're doing a good job, if we accomplish what we want, then our self-esteem is satisfied. And so therefore our first 3 phases of psychological evolution are met and we feel in balance. And this reduces the amount of stress that we feel inside our bodies. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we've got it all figured out. What we really have to figure out is what we're passionate about. And that means aligning with our core values. Knowing deep inside you, what are your non-negotiables? I can't live without this. I can't compromise my integrity. I can't compromise what. So you need to know that you are meeting those fundamental inner core non-negotiables within you in order to live in alignment with your soul mind. We start to feel this pulling more deeply when we're around 40 years old. And when we ignore it, we begin to feel unfulfilled in our lives. If we understand that human beings are basically a herd animal and we require a community, we require unity not only within our community, but within our culture, within our countries, and within the world at large. And this connection is not only one of physical bonding, but of intuition and inspiration. So having a common purpose that unites us as one human family. If you want to call it spirituality or connecting with the universe, however you describe that to yourself is totally personal, and that makes sense to you. So this whole idea of living in passion means that we live in flow. And what exactly does that mean? Well, it means that we are adapting to our environment in many ways, that we don't set our expectations on how things should be or have to be, they just are. So what emerges with this energetically is that we focus on staying in the state of flow, and we do that by remaining adaptable. There's other things that have to be in place in order for us to stay in flow. And one is that we live in a state of feeling inspired with our work and our personal lives. So it's being passionate. And it's also having the ability not to attach ourselves to one specific idea or one specific perception of how things should be. It's learning to just trust yourself and to let go and go with the flow, as they say. So trusting yourself means that you are also more flexible, that when you hear it's my way or the highway, that's not flow. That's not being adaptive, and that's not being flexible. So being open to more ways than one to get the job done. And also believing and accepting that things happen for a reason. Sometimes we don't understand the reason right away, but usually over time that reason becomes clear and you kind of go like, gosh, I'm so glad that happened. It was painful to go through, but in the end I moved on with my life in a different direction and it was a positive thing. So by focusing directly on the task at hand, it allows us to remain in the present. And what that does is it allows us to remain in our neocortex, which means that we're actually thinking about what we're doing rather than running an automated program in our subconscious mind. And we do this a lot, and we recognize it most commonly. For example, if you were to be driving somewhere and you get to your destination and you don't really remember driving. Well, your subconscious mind had learned how to drive there from repeatedly getting there, and then you no longer need to think about it. So you can be spending your time daydreaming on something else while your subconscious mind runs an automated program in the background and drives you home. And the other ways to stay in flow is to understand that sometimes doing nothing is the answer. That we don't always have to act quickly to get to a solution. Sometimes it's the quiet time that allows the right answers to come through. And a difficult one for us as human beings is that life is about change. It's constantly changing, and yet it directly initiates that fight or flight mechanism of uncertainty in our reptilian brain. So we have, this forward-thinking neocortex, which allows us to be creative and intuitive and, seeking all this higher power, very imaginative, and yet we have the reptilian brain, which is uncomfortable with uncertainty. So just to know that those sort of things will be playing a role, and to then accept that life is about change. So just to go along with it, and be curious about your world. Be curious about what other people are doing, why they're doing it, and asking lots of questions engages this inspired section of our brain, which keeps us not only thinking multidimensionally, but has a chance to influence our perception. And so therefore, again, be comfortable with change. So we look at the big picture as well as the small picture and know the whole thing. So we look at things on a multidimensional way. If we have a question about something, we don't just ask it in the comfortable areas of our lives, but who else is going to be influenced or have some sort of connection to what we're doing. So we look at things in a way of how our actions influence not only us but our world at large. And then staying in connection with core values. This means that your authentic nature is being lived by truly and aligned directly with who you are as an individual. And when you live that way, you are constantly being rewarded with just the strength of your inner being. And so the core values that we have allow us to stay in a state of passion. So tomorrow I'll blog about the fourth phase of psychological evolution, which is transformation, which is actually uncovering your authentic nature so that you can align with your soul mind. So I hope to see you then, probably around 9:30 again tomorrow morning. And until then, enjoy this beautiful day. If you'd like to speak with me in person, you can always reach me, connect with me either by sending me a direct message or through my website at adele@yourdestinycoach.ca. Stay well. Thanks so much, and bye-bye.